If you're ready to go, take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Kim, and thank you for InterDyn BMI for having us host a webinar to demonstrate some features within Dynamics that I'm going to be showing you, as well as our product and how that works together, basically to turn your Dynamics GP into a warehouse management system. So I did put together a little bit of an agenda here for us. So let's see if I can get my clicking here going. And so our agenda is we're going to be talking a little bit about barcode technology in general. We talk a lot with new customers on barcode technology and some of what it really is, and best practices on setting up barcode labels for your items, and we'll go through that as a starting point. And then we'll be going through some GP inventory features that you might not even be aware of. And during that time, I'm going to also be interjecting how we utilize those features in our solution by giving you a glimpse of some of the key transactions in our application. So hopefully you'll find this beneficial. This is just going to be a very small segment of the transactions we do support, but hopefully it'll give you a good flavor of the application interface, which is what my intention is for this webinar. So we'll jump right into going about barcodes itself. So basically, again, we get a lot of questions. I think there's a lot of misconceptions of what a barcode is. So I'd like to just kind of start out with some very basics on barcode technology in general. So basically, a barcode simply represents basically a key or some information typically associated in a database, and kind of think of it as a font or kind of a symbology as it's called in the barcode world, but you can also buy barcodes as a font as well, so kind of think of it as a font. So when you basically put together a barcode, it could represent an item, it could represent a location, it could represent your order number, whether that's a purchase order or a sales order. It can be an employee ID, it could be a vendor ID. So all of these are examples of a barcode, and when you scan the barcode reader just simply interprets that barcode into what you see as the text below it. So very simple and very basic, that's what a barcode is. For your items, you do not need to have a different number than your GP item number in order to barcode your inventory. So that's one of the big questions we often get asked. So I'm talking a little bit about, as I mentioned, it's kind of like a font. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the symbologies. And so I've just got a few examples here that are kind of common and that are good examples. So the first couple in that first box are related to retail. So I'm guessing every single one of you have gone to a store, whether it's a grocery store or some other type of a store. When they check you out, they're going to scan a UPC code, a barcode that's on the merchandise, and it's going to return the price. Same concept. So those are basically, a UPC is really identified with companies that are going to sell in a retail environment or resell their inventory to their items. If you're not a retailer or selling into a retail environment, you do not need to set up a special UPC code for your products. Internally, you can just use your GP item number. So the next one over is code 39. This is a very common font that you can often download for free. And it could be used in documents such as a Word document. It could be used in an Excel document. It can also be incorporated in Report Writer for your Dynamics GP. So if you want to barcode things such as a purchase order number, so somebody can use that to scan, or you want to incorporate that on a sales order number, so again the users would have a picking list that they can scan from. Code 39 is a very popular barcode font available in the market. Oftentimes you can get that for free. One thing to note about a code 39 is it does require a check character at the beginning, at the end. So if you see on the human readable, there's a little asterisk before and after. If that's not encoded, the barcode will never read. So if you do have that, make sure you have some type of a barcode reader available for you to test that you've got it configured correctly. We do have a blog post if you are interested in incorporating barcodes to Report Writer in GP. We do have a blog post on the ERP software blog that will walk you through the steps on how to set that up in Report Writer. The next one over is a QR code. It's basically a 2D, two-dimensional barcode versus a 1D, which is the first three that are on the top row there. And a QR code is very consumer focused, and we get a lot of people saying they're going to use QR codes for their inventory. QR code is really designed for a consumer. It's usually designed when you scan it, it's going to take you out to a website, or it's going to do some type of action. A lot of times they're on business cards, or to collect data about the that person their contact information. So usually a QR code is not traditionally used as an inventory barcode. Although if you are talking or have anybody in China that you deal with, they tend to be a QR codes. They tend to go to the QR code for whatever reason. It can certainly be used. It's just not a traditional barcode used for inventory tracking. And it's also mistaken for the data matrix code, which is coming up on the bottom. So the two on the bottom and the screen in red that I've got highlighted in red, these are our two recommendations. Code 39 is still great if you want to go that direction for putting in documents and stuff. But for usually setting up barcodes in your environment for printing barcodes, Code 128 does not require those check characters. It supports full alphanumeric and special characters, although we don't want special characters typically represented in a barcode. They can sometimes cause problems with the software. But it is a very nice barcode, and it's also more condensed. Especially for the 1D barcodes, the longer the item number, the more characters, it will grow lengthwise for you. So you're going to see that it's going to expand. And so if you start putting in a lot of data, or if you've got a large piece of data in there, that's going to grow longer as the more characters that you add. And then we have the data matrix barcode. As you can see, it's very similar look to the QR code. And data matrix code is really nice because you can make a very small footprint. If you've got really tiny items that you still want to barcode, that data matrix code works really nice. You can actually get the full Gettysburg Address into the size of a postage stamp for the barcode. I've got that one blown up pretty big here for us, but data matrix can go down really, really small for small tools or for really small inventory that still needs to be marked with some type of a barcode. It is usually the one we recommend if you want to have barcodes that are going to have multiple pieces of data embedded in them, because again, it's going to be nice small footprint for you. It does require an imager type of a scanner, so there are different scanners that will be able to read. If you are going with a 2D type of barcode, it does require an imager type scanner versus a traditional 1D scanner. Those imagers can read any of these barcodes for you. So if you're going to get a little fancier and go for the 2D route, that's one of the things to take into consideration when you're actually having that reader. You'll just have to make sure you select the correct hardware for reading those barcodes. One of the things that we work quite frequently with our customers is also, what do I put on my barcode label? So typically, this is kind of the minimum based on how the item is tracked. You want your item number represented as a barcode because that's going to be what we're going to pull from the record from the database. We'll return item description, the location, how much you have. It does not have to be on your barcode label. If you're serial tracking, you'll want your item number and a serial number because that's going to be information we're going to be capturing. And if it's lot tracked, at a minimum, you want your lot number and your item number on those types of labels. Now, you might have some additional information that might be useful to the user to see, which might be for lot numbers, especially a manufacture date, an expiration date, or any other lot attributes you might be capturing. But again, all that data is going to still be stored in your database, so if it's just data that you're going to be capturing once you've received it in, you really don't need much more on your labels other than that. We typically recommend you do not have your location and your quantity or any data that may change. Now, there's exceptions to those rules. For example, if you know you have this item and you only stock it in one specific location, only that location, okay, you can put that location on your label. We won't object too much to that. For the quantity, a lot of times people will put quantities on things like a pallet. I got a pallet of something and I want to put in, I've got 250 cases on this pallet and I want to have on my pallet tag how many cases are on that pallet. Just know in those cases, if you take something off that pallet, that quantity is no longer accurate. So you have to be cautious of what you're using it and how you're using that. So again, some of that is not usually recommended, typically on standard product, but again, there's always exceptions to the rule. And if the data is going to change, you might want to reconsider how you set those up. And finally, I'm wrapping up with a barcode standard that's in the industry today that's called a GS1 barcode. And also, you might have, if you're in any type of industry, you might be mandated for a UDI, a unique device identification, which uses the GS1 barcode function. So basically what this is, it's an industry standard, so it's very standardized. We recommend that you do not try to replicate this on your own. Buy or purchase or invest in some barcode labeling software. It will have these formats for you, so it will be properly coded for you. We're working with several of our customers now that get things from the vendors that have attempted to do this on their own, and it doesn't work out so well. But with the GS1 barcode, whether it's the code 128 that we like or that data matrix, basically, again, these are standards. And so how do we identify, or how does this work, is there's different pieces of information embedded into the same barcode, into the single barcode. So in this case, we've got 01, you can see in parentheses, and then after that, it's going to be your item number. It might be the manufacturer's item number, it might be your item number, depending upon how you have that set up. Number 15 is going to be the expiration date if this was lot tracked. 13 represents a manufacture date. 10 represents a lot number. And there's a whole host of other variables available. This is just some examples of what somebody would put together for a GS1 barcode. But there's a large number of them. And basically, this is going to give you the ability then for a single barcode. So when you can scan that, it's going to actually capture all of this information. So that's going to bring us to basically what we consider that as a composite barcode is how we refer to these. And basically what that is multiple pieces of data in the same barcode. Now we've also have our own. So if you're printing labels using our software, we actually have standardized, but basically that same composite barcode, we call it our Panacode, basically does very similar thing. And what we do in our software, we have the logic that if you scan that 2D barcode, we will parse the data. We know how to parse out all those pieces of information into the correct fields in the application. What big advantage you get is you get a single scan without having to say, I'm scanning my item, I'm scanning my lot number, I'm scanning my expiration date. Single scan populates all the data for you automatically. So we also have our own, for our software that works standard across our application, but we also have the ability to do that against any composite barcode. If there's a format or option that we can recognize, we have an infrastructure to set up any parsing of those barcodes for you. So we're not restricted to the GS1 or ours. It can be based on anything that you can provide to us that's got a standardized rules associated with. Capture the first 14 characters, then there might be a group separator in there or a separator identifier. Now capture the next 10 characters. So we can actually identify multiple ways and disperse those composite barcodes for you in our software. And I'll be demonstrating that. Actually, I don't have a demonstration of that one, but we certainly can demonstrate for that for a demo. So some of the couple key advantages of barcode technology, a couple facts that I grabbed is basically accuracy. So basically an error rate of somebody actually going to be doing data entry, if they're good at it, they basically say it's 1 in 100 characters you're going to have a mistake. So a character substitution in a barcode scan, the risk ranges between 15,000 to 36 trillion characters scanned. I have seen it. It's very rare, and typically in those cases, a lot of times maybe the barcode has got is corrupted in some way itself that might cause that problem. But it's very, very, very rare. And as you can see by this tidbit here, you're going to get pretty accurate scanning for the most part. And also the speed of capturing your data. So it takes approximately 6 seconds to type in 12 characters on a keyboard, where a scan will take 0.3 seconds. So again, scanning is very, very, very quick and very, very efficient and very, very accurate. So that's going to drive me into the next part of my slide deck, which is basically the advantage of mobile technology in general. Our application works on mobile devices, mobile handheld devices. So what advantages do we have for that? So first of all, it's going to eliminate redundant entry. So if you've got people that you get a shipment comes in, they're marking stuff up on a packing list, and they might have to write down serial numbers or lot numbers or information. They give it to somebody else, and maybe 3 days later, somebody's entering that data into your Dynamics GP database. A, risk of inaccurate data, and B, you're going to have a big delay in when that information gets put in your actual database. We also give real-time validation. So when somebody's actually capturing a transaction, we're validating real-time against your Dynamics GP database. So that's going to eliminate potential errors, somebody writing something down incorrectly, picking something wrong. Those can be all avoided right up front because we're doing that validation right from a computer that the user is holding. And when those transactions are being captured, inventory is updated immediately. So there's no delays between when that inventory gets added in or taken out. The people out on the floor in the warehouse, in the stock rooms, out on their trucks, they're going to know right away what's my current quantities, what do I really actually have. So everything gets updated immediately to your core system. And also that gives them readily available access. I hear oftentimes going out where somebody says, well, say somebody can't find something in the warehouse, they have to run back to the office, then they have to bring up the item in GP, look to see where else they had the quantities, then they're running back out to the warehouse and hoping that they can find it that it's been up to date in the first place. So having that available right at their fingertips to be able to access that data has huge benefits for warehouses and also for any stockroom for inventory management. So now I'm going to go into some demonstrations, so some of the fun part of actually identifying and seeing our application in real time for you. So the first thing I'm going to do is give you just a quick overview of our application, and we're going to start with the demonstration of a receiving transaction. And during this demonstration, I'm going to be showing you or giving you a demonstration how to scan barcodes and also how to look up information in a lookup list. So you don't always have barcodes to scan. It's not a requirement. Adds efficiency, obviously, but you don't always have barcodes to scan. So we're going to be talking about a couple of those features. We're also going to be talking about the automated label printing, which kind of comes right back from the label printing discussion we had earlier. And you'll see how easy the user interface is. So if you're familiar with GP, this is going to look like, wow, this is really super simple. We're not drilling down to a bunch of windows. We're basically giving it a very nice, simple, easy interface for the users and trying to take out any additional data that they don't need to capture by setting some defaults and those types of things as well. So a little bit about our solution in general. So we are a mobile solution that captures in transactions at the point in time they occur, and we do utilize the barcode technology. We also are completely integrated to Dynamics GP. GP is the single host database, so it's your only single system of record. You don't have two databases to have to keep in line. We're going to be using Dynamics. Obviously, then Dynamics also becomes your backup, so if something can't be completed through the handheld, you can do it directly in GP as well. And again, everything feeds into the same database, so everything gets into a single reporting solution. We offer many configuration setting options to tailor the setup to your workflow and processes, and we'll be talking about some of those as well. And we also have some extensibility. We've added some user-definable fields, which we call flex fields, that we can capture some additional data and information on transactions that might not be standard on some of those transactions. We also have the ability to be very scalable, and we have multiple solution levels. So you might want to start out with the basics, and then maybe later on you decide, well, we want to get a little bit more advanced. We can actually provide solutions tailored, again, to your environment, to your processes and workflows. We offer a very affordable solution with a quick implementation because Dynamics is our host database. Our setup is basically how do you want the application on the handheld to work. Pretty straightforward and pretty easy. And of course that easy to use interface that I talked about as well. This is just a quick slide on the inventory workflow that we have, all the different touch points. As you can see, this is not all inclusive, but it's got pretty good general information of receiving stuff in. Once you've received it in, you manage inventory in your warehouse. You've got order picking and packing. We do support manufacturing and assembly as well. So let's go ahead and start by talking about the receiving process. And I'm not going to do large numbers of transactions or items. I just want to give you a good flavor of the application interface. So the first thing you're going to notice is my site filter automatically defaulted. So this is the site that I'm working against. So we have the ability to set default settings. We also have the ability, as I mentioned, to look up information. Anything we're validating, any data we capture from GP has a corresponding lookup list. So if I tap on the PO filter button, for example, it's going to show me a list of all my open purchase orders. We also have what we call type ahead filtering or filtering with the ability to type in all or part of the information. So if I was looking up for, I'm going to be doing PO 0391, if I just want to type 391, if I type it correctly, it would be helpful, 391, it's going to go ahead and start filtering my information in my screen based on what I'm typing in. So that we have standard on all of our lookup lists. So now I've found my PO 391 with just typing in those first 3 characters. Now I can also scan that as well. And then the Enter key goes ahead and selects that purchase order. If I had a document number I wanted to capture, I can go ahead and do that. And then again, we've got my item numbers, so here's my items. And a lot of times our lookup lists will include things such as, this is my expected quantity. We're reading real time from Dynamics. We know this is what I'm expecting. Here's the 3 line items that I have. And so now I can go ahead and I've got access to see what am I expecting to receive in. So again, you'll see that you'll notice there's several things that again have been defaulted for me. So again, we try to make this very, very simple. We can make this more complex if you needed to or wanted to, but I'm going to keep this fairly quick and easy for us today. So I'm going to go ahead and enter in my quantity of 36, and I do have my label printing enabled. So now I can identify how many labels do I want to print. Maybe these are 2 cases and I don't really want to pull everything apart and label 36 of them. I'm just going to put 2 barcode labels on the cases. I can go ahead and determine what my print quantity is. And we also have some default settings for that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and scan the next one, which is going to be a lot tracked inventory item. And of course for lot tracking, we do have the ability to also I have the ability to go ahead and scan or enter in data there as well. And so now I can go ahead and enter in the quantity that I need for that particular lot number. And I'm not going to print labels for that one. We can also default that print quantity as well, as I mentioned before. And so now we've got one more item. We're going to go ahead and, oh, that one's not found on my, I think probably did a quick entry of my barcode. It doesn't work, so, because I don't have it on my purchase order. So in this case, I scanned an item that wasn't there, and so it's going to, again, do that validation for me. So I can go ahead and I'll scan this or select this next one. We'll enter in my quantity, and we'll finish out by printing. So once I know that I'm completed with my transaction, I can go to my review screen, and here's what I've captured. Now I can also access that while I'm in the middle of my data capture. So if I wanted to check on this, maybe I get called away for a phone call. Very simple. I can go and double check what have I done so far. And I can go ahead and with some visual icons identify my status of each of those lines. Green check mark, everything's been received complete based on what I was expecting. And this one I've only got part of it received. Maybe I didn't get the one of the boxes didn't show up yet. Now I can go ahead and from the review screen, we're going to simply submit this transaction, which is going to then create the actual receipt directly into my Dynamics database. And here's my receipt number, now I have the opportunity to write that down on my packing list. So if I did need to reference that at some point in time because somebody was going to do some auditing or some troubleshooting, that could be available for somebody to record as well. And now I'm set to go to my next transaction. We have a lot of different settings related to receiving that we support. So depending upon settings in GP as well as settings in our configuration setup, there's a lot of different work paths that you can actually define and set. So once I'm finished with that, I'm just going to go back out here to my favorites menu. And of course, when we were printing, those labels would print out automatically so that we could go ahead and tag that inventory. And we do have label printing support on a number of transactions anytime you add inventory. So receiving, adjustment, adds, create production or your manufacturing receiving transactions, assemblies. And we also added it for things such as site transfers, bin-to-bin moves, item inquiries, stock counts. A lot of times for customers, if they've got that pallet, a product that they've got a pallet label on here. Now they're going to take a bag off of that pallet and they want to be able to tag that bag so they can now easily scan it from that point forward. We've added the ability to create some labels at any point in time in the process. So a lot of robustness as far as how you'd manage your inventory and where you'd need those features to be able to do that labeling. I'm going to get into a few more things that are going to be features that are going to be related to GP itself and our application. So we're going to be talking a little bit about bin assignments, item resource planning, reason codes, unit of measure, and manufacturer item cross-references. So the first thing I'd like to talk about for multiple bin tracking, you do have the ability in Dynamics on your item quantity maintenance cards to actually identify for each site a designated bin for that item. We will display that in our handheld as well, so you don't have to have multiple bins to take advantage of that. However, as soon as you're introducing where you have multiple locations where that inventory ends up being stored or stocked in the same site location, you may want to consider going to multiple bin tracking in Dynamics. So this is where a lot of times we're converting people over. It's not very efficient to do it if you don't have a device to be able to record movements between your locations, but we definitely like to see this anytime that you might have overstock areas, or for some people they just find where there's space available. By identifying where you're putting it and identifying all of those types of things, it's going to be easier because on the device you're always going to have access to know exactly where and what quantities you have for each of your items and for each of the locations. So we also get asked a lot about a strategy of, well, how do I name my bins? So I've got a very simple, really very simple strategy here. But usually one of the things to consider is walk how somebody's going to be picking inventory for a sales order, for example, or how they need to find that inventory. You want to make a sortable assignment so that you can sort on our order picking, for example, and even on our put away, a sort order so that when you're scanning stuff or when you're looking up stuff in a list, it's going to give you a list that's in a correct order that makes the most logical sense to walk your warehouse through. So that's usually what we want you to consider. We also want you to not overcomplicate the location numbering. Remember, the people that are having to grab this have to be able to look at that and interpret that very easily and quickly. So don't over-engineer it. So usually we want to make sure that people keep it fairly simple and not get too complicated. When somebody starts getting 5 levels deep, it could get really, really complicated. So one of the things you may even want to incorporate is talk to the people that have to manage, that are actually dealing with the inventory on a day-to-day basis. And make it easy to identify overstock bin locations and designated for, bins designated for staging or an inventory status. So you don't have to have, even if you've got tall shelves, you can have where you can identify things on the label itself to make it very easy. You can use some color coding, you can use arrows, again, to make it easy to be able to access those bin markers to be able to scan them. Now in Dynamics, if you go to multiple bin tracking, not only do you just set up multiple bins, but you've got a lot of other additional setup. Some of the setup is available on the site level as well as on the item site level. So on the very top in red, these are also available that you can set up on as site defaults. Do you have a purchase receipt bins? A lot of times people will do that on a site level because they're going to receive everything into a general dock area. Or it can be very specific to the actual item itself. Same thing with sales order fulfillment. If this is my primary stock location for that specific item, that's going to be where I want to send the people to pick from. This is where you can set that up as well. We also have the ability in Dynamics to set up priority bins. This is really nice because now we're going to be introducing some min and max quantities down to the bin level for that item. And you can also identify, well, maybe I've got this area is my primary bin location. You notice it matches my order fulfillment, but I also have an overstock area, and this is my designated overstock area. We apply priority bins and your bin setup within our configuration logic as well. So we can actually present, hey, if somebody scanned A-2001 for this item, we can actually tell them, you know, this isn't really the standard put-away location for this item. So we can start giving you the tools to really manage your inventory in a more specific way. So again, advantages of multiple bin setup is some additional ones are allocations. If you're allocating your sales orders, they're on a site level, not down to the bin level. Because what really gets frustrating a lot of times is all of a sudden your site goes into negative quantity because you've got more orders for an item than you actually have on hand quantity, and then available becomes useless for you. If you really then want to go to the bins, because your bin quantities are not affected until you actually fulfill the order. So now you can switch your reporting to a bin quantities versus site quantities to know what you really actually have at any given point in time. So that's one advantage that you may want to consider if you're doing allocations as well. And you can add flexibility on your on stocking your inventory. You can see exactly where inventory is located and how much you have available and at any given point in time for better inventory management as well. And this is just a bin quantity inquiry of Dynamics that I'm showing here. So you can see exactly what you have for quantities both on hand and available. So now we're going to identify a few features that we offer supporting that multiple bin. So the put away transaction, which we're going to see live here in a second. And we also have complete support on order picking, where we can set pick list sort orders. We actually even have the logic, if that location is empty, we're going to give you the next location where there's inventory, and that can be based on your priority bin setup as well. And then we also have the item bin moves, where you'd be able to go ahead and move between bin locations. And we can actually set it up so you can move a group of inventory. So if you've got serialized inventory, group it together into a kind of a temporary movable bin, and instead of having to scan 30 serial numbers to put it away, we actually built in logic so that you can actually say, I want to take everything in this bin and dump it into this bin over here without having to rescan every single unit again. So I'm going to give you a quick demonstration of our put away transaction in real time. And so I'm going to be putting away out of my dock location. So I'm going to go ahead and scan that. Here's going to show all of the items here. And this is also a lot of times used for an inquiry screen. And so I can go ahead and I can do my putaways. And you're going to notice as I scan my item, it's going to tell me what bin I'm supposed to put it in. And again, this is different logic depending upon how you want to set it up. So now I can scan to confirm that's the bin I'm putting away, and I can enter in my quantity. So these are simply bin-to-bin moves on the outside of this, or internal on the GP side. So very, very simple, very easy to do. And bin-to-bin moves is a process, so as soon as I completed that, that inventory has been moved. So if I go back to my screen here, those two items I just put away are no longer in my list. Great second check to a receiving transaction. If I received it in, somebody else puts it away, my dock is empty, my screen should be empty. So again, that gives you a nice second check against your receiving functionality if you'd like to have it set up that way. So we'll go ahead and drop out of that one for now so we can go on to the next function. We've actually extended, and this is where we have an advanced functionality where we've actually extended the logic of your bin setup in Dynamics, where we've added the ability to identify the type of bin. Is it a stock bin? Is it a staging bin? Is it an overstock bin? And now we can apply more logic. So in other words, for some of our customers, overstock is high and away. We never want to send them, when they're picking an order, to an overstock bin. So we can apply that logic in order picking as only give them stocking bins. Don't give them a staging bin. Somebody already moved stuff in there to stage it for some other order. So we can actually build out some additional logic to GP's bin setup and basically kind of put it on steroids here for you. So that's again in our advanced functionality. So if you've got more advanced logic that you'd like to introduce, this is something also available that you can migrate into as well. The next thing I'm going to be talking about is going to be item resource planning. I'm really surprised a lot of times nobody uses these features within Dynamics, and so we do have some nice tools available for this as well. So on a site level, if you're not using multiple bins, on a site level you can set order point quantities, order up to levels, and that a lot of times those are used for min and max quantities. And so logic can be set up either behind the scenes to automate this, or we have some tools available as well that basically can identify if my on-hand quantity says I've got 21, I've got an order up to level of 40, so in order to restock that site location, I need 19 more. So again, we do have some an infrastructure that we're going to be, what I'm demonstrating next, to really support restock functionality in general. And so this is logic that some of our customers have identified, set up, and we can automatically create a transfer request. So if my store 1 needs 19, my main warehouse is going to get a request to say, I need 19 more transferred to me, so transfer me some basically an internal order. So that's on basically on a site level. We also have that available on a bin level. I think my things might have got out of order here too. We also can set that up on a bin level as well that I showed you earlier, where you've got that min and max on a bin level. So if you've got overstock locations, now you want to make sure you're going to restock your primary locations, you can set it up that way as well. And that's going to take us into the next feature that I want to show you. Now this is some extensibility again that we've added based on some of the logic in GP that you can set up on those min-max numbers, is we can actually put together a transfer request. So we have an infrastructure that allows us to say, instead of a sales order, if you're familiar with that, it's an internal, basically an internal transfer request. Now this could be a bin-to-bin move, or it can be a site-to-site transfer. We support both. So as I mentioned, we can do an automatic calculation based on those restock levels, either on the site level or on the bin. For our manufacturers or people that do assemblies, when they put a manufacturing or a work order in, they might want to then trigger saying, look at all my components, calculate them out, and then have a transfer request to say, take my inventory from my stocking location to my assembly or manufacturing floor. So that's another use that we have many of our customers actually utilize. We also have a direct entry. We actually have an interface in our web portal that basically allows somebody to manually enter in a request. So that's another option. So somebody can just hop on and say, I'm going to request, X amount of this item and X amount of this item, basically an ad hoc request. And from the handheld, we also have a restock request that can go based against a count. So in other words, I'm going to count against the site, and it's going to then calculate based on those restock locations or those restock levels what I need against a bin quantity. Or again, the user can simply make just a request directly from the device. And we also have what's called a Kanban. So in other words, if I know this, I've got a 2-bin process, so this item, I've got 2 bins associated with this item. When one bin is completely empty, my restock level is 20. I scan that bin, it's going to automatically tell me I need 20. And then I move my other bin over and start working off of that one. So we also have support for that kind of functionality as well. So we have a lot of different options to support moving inventory and transferring inventory between locations. So this is just a screenshot of our transfer entry or our transfer order in our web portal. So we're going to manage what we need, what's been picked. We can cancel quantities. So it's basically an internal order that's being used. And I'm going to actually go through a real quick demo of that. We actually use the same transaction for sales orders. So as I go through this, if you've got sales orders that you're picking, it's going to be the exact same transaction we use for this as well. The logic is the same. The only difference is one you're shipping to a customer and one you're sending or transferring inventory internally. But the process is still the same for both types of features. So here's my items. You can see I've got this set in a bin order. So you can see my A100, A2001, B5001, and C3001. So we've got bin order, and so now we're going to be able to zoom through and pick this very, very quickly and enter in my pick quantity, and it's going to automatically take me to the next. Now I've got this again set up very basic. We have a lot of additional features that can be enabled here as well, but I've got just really the basics so you can see how very quickly and easily just a standard pick can be. Once everything's been picked, it's just going to take me back to my pick list. It's going to identify everything's been picked complete. And when I go ahead and submit this, in this case it's going to create a site transfer. If this was a sales order, it would create actually create, instead of a sales order, it would create an update to the sales order in Dynamics. So we update the quantities fulfilled and all of those types of steps as well. So basically very simple, very easy. We've got some filtering available here so we can actually identify how and what orders somebody is going to see in that display. So as I mentioned, the same infrastructure for picking sales orders. So some of the additional features for sales orders is we can pick into a shipping box or onto a pallet and identify that. So if you are preparing this, we can actually do that on the picking for the internal as well. And we also have an option to add a second step that's either a verification or a pack function. So if you need packing lists that says this case has this item in it and this case is now on this pallet, and you want to be able to do that or have carton labels printed, all that infrastructure exists and works very nicely for your sales orders, where we actually have an infrastructure supporting the shipping applications so they can grab that data and process shipping without knowing what's packed in which box. So we have some good advantages for order picking in general. The next thing I'm going to jump to is reason codes. If you are still on an older version of Dynamics, I think in 2013 reason codes were introduced. Many people will use reason codes to identify departments, inventory that's issued to maintenance, repair, or jobs, or some other type of status. So expired product, damaged product, they might be taking product out. Within a reason codes on an adjustment or variance, you can actually define the default offset account, and you can also apply and set up again transfers, your in transit, and also your item bin transfers. So reason codes are a really nice thing to set up. In our application, we have the ability to also take advantage of those reason codes, and I'm going to be demonstrating that coming up here in a minute. So the next thing is the unit of measure. So here's another area that we find a lot of people haven't really thought through or haven't considered setting up units of measure that make sense, that might make their life easier. So unit of measure schedules, you can set up as many you want in GP. They basically identify, for example, a case is going to be equal to 12 eaches, a pack is going to be equal to 3 eaches. So you can set up your different unit of measure schedules and apply those to the items. Now you can then select on any of our transactions a different unit of measure. You can enable that field that you've seen grayed out on our system that I've been using, but that can be enabled so somebody can have the option to select a different unit of measure if they wanted to. Now we've also got a feature that basically has also manufacturer item cross-references. So the item manufacturer cross-references lets you identify, and this is part of standard GP inventory, lets you identify different item numbers that might be coming in from the manufacturer, from your vendors, from whatever other sources, so you can set those up. And in that case, if you scan it in our application and it's set up here, we're going to be able to translate it back to your GP item number, and I'm going to demonstrate this in a second. Now we also go one step further where we can actually identify, we've added on a feature for unit of measure where we can actually say if you scan this particular item number, so a lot of times this goes back to retail UPCs, a can of Coke UPC is going to be different than the case of Coke, we can actually translate it to the actual unit of measure. So when I scan case 128 SDRAM, it's going to actually return unit of measure of case because I know that's what I'm dealing in. So if you've got that feature and that requirement, we'll be able to support that for you as well. So manufacturer cross-references, and I've got screenshots in here, so if we download the slide deck later on, it will be available for you, but I'm going to actually demonstrate this for you as well. And I'm going to demonstrate both the reason codes as well as that unit of measure. So that first field is reference, and that's one of our flex fields, and I'm not going to get into that. I'd mentioned it earlier, but we're not going to go into too much on that. For reason codes, we can make them required or optional. So if I tried to bypass, it's telling me I have to have this reason code. So this is an adjustment remove. So I want to make sure if somebody's removing inventory, I want to make sure they're going to select why they're doing it. So we can also disable it. So if you're not using it for transfers or item bin moves, we can turn it completely off. So that's where we, again, have a lot of configurations. So now I'm going to go ahead and scan that 128 SDRAM just like it normally is and scan my bin and my quantity. Now I'm going to, and you'll have to watch very closely because it's going to translate very quickly, I'm just going to do an alternate manufacturer item number, one that starts with MFG. So when I scan it, you'll see it translated it automatically to my 128 SDRAM. So that's how fast that translation goes. Now I'm going to do the case 128 SDRAM. So watch the unit of measure field. That's going to say case instead of each. So I'm going to go ahead and scan that, and when I do so, it automatically returned my unit of measure of case. Now we can enable that field so somebody can verify or confirm that's what they want to do. I've got mine just as read-only and it still works the same way. So again, that's kind of those features of the reason codes and that unit of measure. Again, review screen, what you saw very similar on the other transactions. This is what I've actually taken out, one case, two eaches. I'm going to submit it. It's going to create my adjustment automatically back into my Dynamics database automatically. All right. So we're on the home stretch. I think I'm doing pretty good on time. So again, this is just that inventory workflow diagram that I displayed to you at the beginning of our session. And so the next screen I'm going to show you is basically our solutions. So every solution we offer as a core, no matter which one you select, is going to have these transactions always included. So that's the receiving, the put away transaction, item bin move, site transfers, the adjustments, add, remove, the stock count, the spot count, item inquiry, that manufacturer item cross-reference. We have that so you can set those at receiving, and we also have a tool that you can use as well, and automated label printing support. That's going to be the core for any of our solutions. So that's going to be what we call basically our essentials. And you can purchase just this group of inventory transactions to get started. Now we do have specific solutions. So one is called our stockroom inventory for projects, service, and jobs. And that's going to add support for project accounting. So if you've got project accounting, we have the project accounting transfer. Key to Act, which used to be OneSoft. If you're not sure if you're OneSoft or used to be OneSoft, is now Key to Act. We have integration points with them as well as other project solutions. So that's going to be the stockroom inventory that we have for project, service, and jobs. We have inventory for distribution, and that's going to add pick and pack features. So if I go back to my handheld, and I'm on a favorites menu, so this is just giving me my transactions I'm working on. But that's going to give you all sorts of functionality here. You're going to be able to fulfill orders, verify orders, assign shipping and tracking numbers, and all that type of stuff. That's going to be in the distribution. That's going to add that to your core essentials for that. Then we have inventory for manufacturing. So depending upon which version level that you get, you might also have distribution in there because you might be picking orders, or maybe you don't. But that's going to add support for assembly, GP, vicinity, and horizon manufacturing. We have integration to all three of those manufacturing options. And we also, for assembly, have built out a work order. So if you've got pretty simple manufacturing, but you always wanted, well, I wish I could plan what I want to be able to build, we do offer a work order feature, and that's included in that, as even down to the essential, that base will be included with that for you as well. And then we have inventory for central warehouse management. And that's really targeted to the hub and spoke organizations that manage inventory at satellite locations. I've got a central warehouse. Maybe I have to keep the trucks. A lot of the stuff that you saw on the transfer request is supported in there, but that also has support in it, a lot of the other solutions set as well. So it's not just restricted to this. But our core functionality there will be. So that's going to be maybe I've got a warehouse that I've got to do store locations or lab areas. So again, that central warehouse management, which really kind of supports the, hey, I need to keep restock levels and maintain that. We have a specific solution set for that as well. So again, a little bit about our solution just as a wrap-up here. We offer not just those solutions on the device. We do have a full server-side infrastructure that gives you a browser-based portal interface that allows you to go into set configuration settings. We do log all the transactions. We do not require a GP user login. So that's a really big plus, but we want to still know who did what transactions. So we'll keep that audit trail for you. It also provides the ability to resubmit any problem transactions. Should anything occur that's a problem, it's going to let you go ahead and resubmit those as well. Again, very scalable. We actually have an infrastructure that if you needed to make a slight change to how that transaction might go in because for some reason, or maybe I need to update some other part of GP or another third party as part of that transaction, you can actually add a stored procedure without having us to do any customizations. We talked very briefly about the flex fields, user-definable fields available. You define the name, the behavior of those fields, and you can also add additional logic. You can add validation, you can add lookup lists that you make the most sense for you as well. And we have multiple configuration settings, so you can tailor your application based on what the process is and by user. So it goes down to a user level. Some examples are setting that default site, enabling the unit of measure. We can scan so we can count the scans versus having to key in the quantity. Allowing over receipts on a purchase order receipt, how the order pick list sort order is set, and many, many, many more. So we work with you on getting how do you want this to look for your users? Do you have different users that would be set up differently? Thank you so much. I thank you to Kim and InterDyn BMI for having us host this webinar for you. I hope that you found it informational. If you do want some additional information, I would recommend going to our sales@panatrack.com, email that. Otherwise, there is our phone number there as well. And Kim, I'll bring it back to you to open it up for any additional questions.
Sounds good. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, I pushed the wrong button. Awesome. So again, wow, you covered a lot of information. So thank you so much. That was great education. So everybody on the right-hand side, if you've got questions specific for Pam that you would like to ask, let's put that in there and ask questions. So Pam, I guess one question for you is what differentiates yourself to other solutions that handle warehousing?
Oh, that's a good question, Kim. So we kind of think of ourselves as kind of a hybrid. So what you're going to see is two ends of the spectrum. One end is going to be full warehouse management systems where you're going to have to set up your inventory items independent from GP. They're going to synchronize data back and forth at some point in time. So that's kind of the big full, hey, we've got a whole infrastructure. Usually those are going to take quite a long time to get set up. They're going to be more expensive, especially maybe not software, but services and long term. There's a lot more overhead. And then there's the basic, very similar to what we do is I'm just going to be able to capture transactions and send them back to Dynamics. And that's fine, but we actually try to enhance and add some additional logic and really take advantage of both the GP infrastructure, not just say we're going to just do an adjustment transaction, we're just going to do a receipt. We want to really capture and utilize the features that a lot of people don't even know exist in Dynamics for the inventory setup. So we really harness that as well as then extend it where it makes sense but still use GP as the host database. You're still going to do all your reporting from there. You don't have to worry about two separate systems.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.